I personally take it to mean a manipulation of someone's culture, with culture meaning customs, language, even just way of dress, and taking a dominating force and using it to take away from its intended meaning. It's an issue for people to get upset about. I've seen a lot of the times it's just this, it's just a skirt or it's just a hairstyle. It's not really cultural appropriation. They're just praising it, So overall, I would definitely say social media hurts instead of heals.
My name is Kayla Heilig. I'm a senior from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm a sociology major with a concentration in crime and criminal justice and a journalism minor. And some things that I'm involved in on campus, I don't even know where to begin. It's a little bit of everything. I'm an RA. I work for University Police. I'm involved in student activism here on campus. And I like to consider myself like a mentor for incoming people because I am a first year RA.
Well, I'm Renee Cooper. I'm a sophomore. I'm from Nassau, the Bahamas, and on campus, I'm involved in RA. I'm an RA in Luther. I'm a charge mentor, and I'm on exec for APO, which is a service frat. And my majors are English and politics.
I'm Kaya. I'm from New York City, and I'm a sophomore.
My name is David Ajame. I'm a senior at Wake studying political science and journalism from Winston-Salem. In involvement, I'm the coordinator for Campus Kitchen, president of the Esports Association.
My name's Zachary Bynum. I'm a senior politics and international affairs major. On campus, I'm involved with a lot of social justice initiatives, and I'm a PHI scholar. And
To take an aspect of someone's culture and try to claim it as your own or try to replicate it in your own way without actually knowing or taking the time to understand it and learn the knowledge behind it or really get in depth with it. A lot of times, I guess that's my definition. I won't get too into it. I think, with social media is very tricky because certain people use their platforms to we have the new thing called influencers and stuff like that, where you have people who are the go-to people for trends and fashion, just depending on what their influencer in. And I think with that, it can be very tricky because they can simply post something and they can have the understanding and have the knowledge, but to the general public, we're not aware of some of that the education component that they put into it. And then I think also how they frame it and how they choose to publish this type of work and put it out on social media is also something to consider. Are they doing it to get likes, or are they doing it to bring awareness and to show that, hey, this is something that I feel like people should appreciate and should take the time to actually learn and educate themselves on it. And that's something to think about.
I think it does both. It allows a platform to share what you should not be doing with stealing or using other people's culture. But at the same time, I think it also perpetrates it. So there's a thing right now online blackface. What does that mean? And how do you navigate the online space by acting black, or how do you act as stealing another person's culture through the use of chips or the use of vernacular? So I think oftentimes online media can propagate it even more so because you have the freedom to not be seen, the freedom to just be on a platform creating an identity.
Cultural appropriation is when a predominant race or any race technically kind of takes certain attributes of another race's culture and puts it on, but it's negative because it doesn't belong to them in that way culturally or socially, so it can come off as mocking.
I would say the stealing and use of another person's culture that one does not identify with, either as a fashion tool or just in any way the using or exploitation of someone else's culture for any point reality.
My general definition of appropriation is consuming culture without really giving it its credit, or sort of acting like something that's clearly not identified with the culture that you might identify with as like, and using that to like enhance what you see as like, you know, your culture or whatever you're trying to show up.
Tourism is our biggest industry back home, and part of what tourists like to do is getting their hair grown back by local hairstylists. So I grew up seeing white people with their hairs growing back all the time, and I never really thought anything of it. So I guess learning more about cultural appropriation was more looking back on my own past and my own development, especially through adolescence, and seeing how things that I just took to be the norm really was my culture being appropriated, especially because of power relations through class, because you know the tourists are how we get the money, or by race, you know.
Okay, this is like a huge debate that I think we've seen on Twitter a lot, but like people always talk about how like Black women set the blueprint for a lot of things that are popular in pop culture, which is true, right? I mean, like people these days like now literally build their whole careers off of like basically acting like Black, like Landon Romano. I was just thinking about like basically his whole career is just him like acting like what he sees as like tropes of Black women, right?
Wake up, you lazy bitch! It's time to go to work! Get up out that twin bed! Pull up in that demon on guard! Looking like I still do right! Wait! Hello? No, she said she can't make it in today. No, she was up all night sharing that nothing ass opinion on Facebook. He said you're fired. Ooh. Bitch, I gotta go. I got money to make. Bye, bro code. Poverty ridden bitch.
Like people like Landon Romano, like that's clear cultural appropriation in the sense that like that's not how he talks, that's not how he was raised. I know he's a Southern gay dude from the South, but like being a Black Southern gay dude from the South, I'm like that's definitely not like, that's not something that you just like picked up, came into the world on your own. Like that's something that you had to pick up over time, and maybe you had an appreciation for it, but now you've like taken on these characteristics to make it seem like that is like who you really are. And that to me is like, that's an example of cultural appropriation compared to appreciation.
Other people's culture because it looks good, or like, you know, it's a cute Instagram picture, but it can be very offensive. Or it's a Halloween costume or something like that, it's clearly offensive for people.
I'm gonna talk about the Kincaid one at the very bottom, because I feel as if this one really captures the iffiness that comes with cultural appropriation, and this is why some people don't take it to be very serious, because like from a social media standpoint, because looking at this photo you can't be like, oh, this is someone's culture, even though her skin tone is so much darker than actually is, and people can just say it's just tanning, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Stop being so sensitive. But the reason this stands out to me is because I see the manipulation coming into play. Because her being praised for being so beautiful with this darkened hue to her skin is the exact same reason I had so much trouble with confidence growing up through colorism. You know, I couldn't change the color of my skin because no matter what, it was going to be Black at the end of the day, dark skinned, as a matter of fact. And her being able to transcend between whiteness and Blackness and using that to sell her products or appeal image-wise definitely, I think, captures what modern cultural appropriation is, at least in the celebrity atmosphere. You know?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it's blackface, but I also would say that she is clearly trying to make money off of the things that people kind of put Black people down for. Like, you know, a lot, like colorism is a very real thing in the Black community, and in general, if you're lighter skinned, that's usually a good thing, and if you're darker, that's usually considered like a negative thing. And the fact that she is kind of using that to make money is kind of messy.
Like, have you seen this picture before?
No, I
For
haven't.
this? So you recognized it right away. Would you think that a lot of people would just think nothing of it?
I think so. I think a lot of people would think nothing of it because they don't have to. Like, they don't see the threat attached to it and the pain that comes with that threat. And I think it's really easy to not pay attention to something that's not going to affect you at the end of the day. But with me, like growing up and having to deal with colorism and having to go on a huge journey of self-acceptance because I was always told dark is ugly, you know, not having tan skin is ugly. I think it hits a bit of a sore spot, and maybe that's why it was just like, yeah, this is the photo. I will say that it's hard to classify it as cultural appropriation because, like I said, people probably aren't as in tune to it because they can't. It's hard to just associate a skin tone with a whole culture, but I definitely will say that it comes with the manipulation that I think is so central to understanding what cultural appropriation is as a concept.
What's interesting, like the banjo actually came from Africa. Most people don't know that. So then, like folk music, which is predominantly used the banjo, it was rooted in the fact of white slave owners taking the music of their slaves, and copying their music. So that was appropriation, the stealing of culture, and how then turn it mixed into the culture of just whites in many examples, even though we know there's still like black string bands going on. So it's like this weird realm of like culture can be easily stolen and stripped away from someone. Because in modern day, no one knows the banjos from Africa. No one knows like string bands were a common thing of Black Americans back in the day. Now it's a white thing. So I think that's the danger of culture appropriation, how it can take away a culture and destroy it and rebrand it. So online, I think you can do the same thing. And so it's just like a really precarious line. I think we just have to be very cognizant of like what words we're using, how we're acting, and what of our actions are copying another culture or using that culture while also oppressing that culture.
Oh yeah, wait, I have a funny story for this. Okay, so in my senior year of high school, my friend and I started, I guess it's like a Finsta, but it was on Instagram. It was called White People in Dashikis, and like dashikis, like an African, it's African garb, but it's more like a dress, so it kind of looks like a robe. But I live in New York, so I just saw a bunch of people wearing them all the time, like at music festivals, also like singing in restaurants and stuff. So we started an Instagram page where we kind of just like called out white people wearing dashikis like around New York.
I mean, to have like a culture without appropriation requires that there be like a just world around culture that treats all of them the same. So we need like a post-colonial world. And I mean, it's a feat within itself, of course. And I think in reality, like us being present within each other, it's just calling our friends out when we see it. Us thinking very critically about our actions, our workings, how we're dressing, and looking at the roots of where things come from, and questioning if what we're doing is problematic. Could that hurt someone or offend someone? And just listening to marginalized peoples when they say something is cultural appropriation. Validating their voices to the best of our ability.
Perfect. That's it. Thank you.
Of course.